Good morning, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to be with the Assistant Treasurer and Minister for Financial Services, Dr. Daniel Mulino. Daniel, thank you so much for your time today. I wanted to start with the theme of our national conference this year is built on trust, ready for tomorrow. And there are two things that I'm really looking forward to hearing your perspectives on: trust in the financial services system and lending in particular, and the role of mortgage brokers, but also some of the really big themes that are shaping the financial services system. For example, cyber, fraud, scams, and also some of the recent announcements coming out of the government's federal budget. So thank you once again.
Well, no, thanks. And look, that's a really important theme. And I think when it comes to financial services, we rightly think of it as a sector which is complex and which involves a lot of technology and, as you and your members know, often complicated regulatory structures. But I think your conference theme is a really important one because trust is so central. That at the heart of all of that complexity and that technology is the fact that so many of the key players in the financial services sector end up being trusted advisors and guiders to people in some of the most important decisions in their life. And what I think makes this conference and what you and your members do every day so important is that you're providing guidance to people about one of the most important decisions they make in their life, which is buying a house, how to finance that, how to secure that over the longer term. And that is incredibly important advice that people are seeking. And so I think that what we need to look at is the ways in which that advice can be provided in an efficient way, an affordable way, an accessible way. But I think we also need to focus on the ways in which mortgage brokers can do that in a way where they do become trusted advisors and can provide people with the high quality services they need.
We've heard you speak a lot about the importance of productivity, competition, and a well-functioning financial services system. What role do you see mortgage brokers playing in achieving these goals?
Yeah, look, so I think that to start with, and some of the themes you touched on are critical, that we want productivity, we want competition. That tends to get better outcomes for consumers through lower prices, but also through better product offerings, through innovation and through firms and advisors and brokers in competitive markets having to tailor their services to meet the particular needs of consumers. So productivity and competition are really important when it comes to driving consumer outcomes, both in the short term and the long term. But as you allude to, we need regulation also, because I think we need, particularly in relation to services that are so important to people, like the services supporting them, making these very important and complex decisions, guardrails around that. Sometimes those guardrails actually promote better markets and productivity and efficiency in that they provide consumers with clearer choices, they provide them with more informed settings in which to make choices between providers. And so I think that in providing greater trust and confidence, well-designed regulation can actually underpin better competition and productivity. There are times when sometimes better protection and efficiency and competition can come into a bit of tension, and we need there to balance the interests of consumers versus the market operation. And I think that's a constant challenge for a good regulatory design. But I think most well-designed regulation will actually, I think, enhance good market outcomes.
I think our perspective, talking about regulation, we obviously saw the introduction of the mortgage broker best interest duty following the Royal Commission. And often when I speak to our members, in their minds what it did is really sort of codify and put into regulation what I describe as the DNA of the industry, like a deep care in putting your clients first. But what we've actually seen is mortgage broker market share increase significantly since then, and we see it as one sign of trust that the role that brokers are playing in putting the interests of their clients, borrowers first, is playing through, and it's playing through to good consumer outcomes. There's been a whole raft of changes coming out of the government's recent federal budget, impacting both housing and tax reform as well, with more than 8 in 10 Australians choosing to use a mortgage broker. These are front of mind for our members and front of mind for many Australians looking to get into the home loan market and understand their options. When you look forward and you think about the reforms that have been introduced, what do you see as the key differences going forward and the benefits that Australians will see?
So, look, the last budget included a lot of changes when it comes to the housing market, and your members will be well aware of a lot of those, but just to kind of set it out at a high level, obviously there was a big focus on trying to address some of the issues of intergenerational fairness that had been preventing a lot of younger people and first home buyers entering the market. So there were some big structural changes around negative gearing and capital gains tax. So we grandfathered all current negative gearing arrangements, but we said moving forward there could only be negative gearing on new builds. And we felt that was a way of trying to encourage a more balanced approach to the housing market overall between people trying to buy their first home versus investors, but while retaining options for investors to negatively gear new builds. And obviously we also changed the CGT arrangements, returning to the old indexation method. So those will be changes that we think over the medium term we'll see around 75,000 people shifting from renting to owning their own home. And so that's a big change. We're also trying to add to supply. So hopefully there's a lot more homes for your members to provide services in relation to going forward. Providing more access to housing is one of the big challenges for government, and this budget builds on a range of measures, particularly on the supply side in previous budgets. But just to put what your members do in that broader context, so your members have seen their market share increase substantially, and I see that as a really positive aspect to people getting more access to advice and guidance, but also as a pro-competitive measure where we know that a lot of brokers are providing people with options beyond the big incumbents, and so that has been a very positive trend. So I think a combination of the things that the government's doing to provide more access to housing for younger and first home buyers, but also the rise in services available to them and all buyers to see what options are out there in the market, I think will together be very positive developments.
Yeah. Our members do also play a very key role in supporting first home buyers gain access to the various government schemes that have been rolled out as well. And I think we know through working very closely with Housing Australia, it's almost 80% of borrowers who access those schemes go via a mortgage broker. And I think that sort of highlights the importance of understanding and creating understanding with people looking to enter the market, as well as what you've mentioned, which is the broader competition that the brokers actually bring to the market and the transparency. It can be very hard to navigate your first home, understanding the process, understanding how to work with a lender. So we also see a key role of our members when it comes to not just product but financial literacy and really, really helping people understand all of their options before they even look to get a home loan.
Well, I think there's all those advantages to broking per se, and we all find the financial services sector hard to navigate. But as you allude to, some of those advantages come into play in particular for particular cohorts like younger people, first home buyers who are navigating that system for the first time, but also a lot of other people, often elderly people or people from a cold background who just struggle with the complexity of the system. So I think there's the broader benefits of broking and advice, but there's also particular benefits for certain cohorts.
Other recent reforms announced by the government also included changes impacting self-managed super fund lending, and this has been a really hot topic amongst our members. And the feedback that we've received is that this has highlighted the importance of consultation when change is affected. So how do you see the government working with our industry to ensure that policy, when it's changed and regulation is designed, that it is informed by practical real-world experience before these decisions are made?
Yeah, so Treasury is a department, and the Treasury Minister is obviously led by the Treasurer. It's a set of portfolios that is very consultation heavy, and I must say, I felt like I've been putting out a discussion paper almost every week throughout my time in this portfolio, and that's a good thing. That's appropriate because it is a portfolio with complex issues, with a complex sector, and we want to ensure that when we put ideas forward, that we implement them in a way which will make sense in practical terms, and that won't have unintended consequences. So consultation is integral to what we are doing across a wide range of areas, many of which touch on brokers. I mean, that includes, for example, CDR, which we might touch on later. There has been extensive and multiple rounds of negotiation on the CDR and the way that it should be rolled out. Now, when it comes to that particular issue of limited recourse borrowing, what I would say is that that's an issue that's been in the public realm for a very long time. It's been an issue that has been flagged as needing attention, and not everybody has landed on the same position on that issue. But I would reflect, for example, on some recent inquiries which have looked at that, including the Murray Review, which landed on a position of saying that it wasn't appropriate for that kind of borrowing to occur in the super context, given that super should be primarily about building assets for somebody's financial sustainability in retirement. I understand this is an issue where there's a range of views, and we will certainly consult on the way that we implement it.
Very recently, we've heard the Prime Minister announce the establishment of the Office of Artificial Intelligence. And when you think about AI, it's changing so much of our lives, but also changing how Australians access finance. Looking ahead, how do you see the role of AI and innovation in financial services, and where do you see mortgage brokers fitting into that into the future?
So I think that the Prime Minister's announcement, and I think it's a really welcome announcement, reflects a couple of things. Firstly, that we see AI now across so many portfolios. It's really important to have that central function that draws all those strands together. We see huge opportunities from AI. For example, in the rollout of data centres, we see AI now having significant productivity impacts in a wide range of areas, including financial services. But we also see a number of challenges and risks that we need to navigate along the way. So that includes, for example, with data centres, yes, they'll create a lot of jobs, they'll create more opportunities for data sovereignty and all the industries that hang off those data centres, but we need to make sure we get the permission from communities when it comes to issues like land use, water, energy issues and so forth. There are huge opportunities for productivity gains from AI, but we need to manage a range of issues such as privacy and copyright. And so I think bringing that into one central focus acknowledges is that there's a huge opportunity, but we need to make sure that we have visibility of the way all these different issues are being managed across all these different portfolios. The second issue, and related, I think, is that there's a huge opportunity with AI, but I think we're only going to have the social licence to embrace that if we provide the broader population with confidence that we are managing all of these other issues as we roll AI out. And I think that's something which the Prime Minister has very much focused on, that we need to make sure that we provide people with confidence that we are appropriately managing all of the different risks that exist alongside the massive opportunities. Now, when it comes to financial services, I'm already seeing AI being used in all sorts of positive ways. It's being used, by brokers, by people providing credit, by people looking to manage cyber and scam risk. AI is being used in a range of incredibly productive ways already. But again, we need to make sure that all those positives are done in a way where we just keep an eye on the regulation of the way AI is used so that things like privacy and other risks are being managed along the way.
I think as an extension to the conversation around technology is also the evolving landscape when it comes to fraud and scams and cyber resilience across the financial services system. What are your thoughts on how the mortgage and finance broking industry can work with government to better protect consumers, whilst also importantly maintaining trust in the lending market?
Yeah, so cyber resilience and scams, as you just alluded to, are issues right across the financial services sector. Certainly cyber, I'm seeing a rise in relation to mortgage broking, but also in relation to banks, super, insurance, all the different elements of the sector. And scams is an issue which we're very focused on from a regulatory perspective. What I'd say about cyber and scams is that we're seeing AI, in a sense, on both sides of the equation. So we're seeing AI being used increasingly by the perpetrators of the problematic activity, but we're also seeing AI being used increasingly to protect consumers, both by the financial sector organisations or the advisors, but also by regulators. And so we're in a little bit of a competition, if you will, making sure that the use of AI by the organisations acting on behalf of consumers and the regulators is at least as advanced and effective as the AI being used by the perpetrators. I think in terms of how brokers, but also other parts of the financial services sector can work best with government, is that we need to make sure we fully understand the ways in which you're using AI, in which AI can be used to protect from risk, but also to understand from your perspective how these risks are materialising. Obviously, regulators have visibility of that, but it's always good to complement that with the things that you're seeing, both directly and also through your clients. So I think this is something where we need to make sure that in that broader ecosystem, that when it comes to these ever more sophisticated challenges and risks, that industry and government work closely together to make sure that we make our system as a whole as resilient as possible.
Just in closing, if you could leave our members with your thoughts, what's the key message you'd like everyone in the room today and MFAA members from right across the country to take away about the government's vision for Australia's mortgage and finance broking industry?
So look, I'd go back to some of those broader themes that we touched on, like productivity and competition. Productivity is key. I think that will ultimately massively benefit consumers, and brokers are central to that through things like your uptake of the consumer data right. Through that, you're enabling consumers to use their data to their own benefit. But not only that, you're enabling consumers to use their data in a safe way to avoid screen scraping and move to a system where ultimately I think consumers are going to be much more empowered and get better outcomes. You're also key to competition. I think the rise in the share of mortgage broking in the mortgage market has been key in providing people with more awareness of the choices that they have. But then also, to return to your conference theme, productivity and competition and efficiency are really important, but trust is absolutely critical to this sector, because what we need to make sure, I think, is that some of the advisors, the brokers, the people that play such a key role in helping people navigate that system are key trusted advisors, and that people can rely on them for advice that is unbiased, that is unconflicted, that is high quality. I think that theme is a really critical one and is really central to the financial services sector overall.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much for your time today. It's really appreciated, and thank you on behalf of our members as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay.